Boom. Who needs lights? Camera action. Camera action with it. Okay. We are back. Opus 4.8 released today. So we're gonna this stream's gonna be quick. Just gonna read through the docs together. Just me, no popcorn reading. But yeah, let's just read through this. 1 hour ago, the actual Anthropic docs, API docs came out. So this is kind of what I was waiting for. But high level, we got the Frontier, from the Frontier Lab, Anthropic, the leaders in model capability. We have their flagship model, Opus 4.8 from Opus 4.7. As you can see, agentic coding, Sweet Bench Pro, nice hike up, like a healthy hike up. Agentic terminal coding, good bit up from 4.7. It's not there compared to Codex, GPT 5.5. And the other stuff is all right. Misaligned behaviors down. Mythos preview. Some Mythos, and then we have basically dynamic workflows is a new feature in Claude Code, available in Research Preview, allows Claude to take on even bigger tasks in Claude Code. Hundreds of parallel subagents in a single session. It verifies outputs before reporting back to the user. So it runs for longer, right? It runs for a little bit longer, and what's going on behind the scenes, I'm not sure, but if you go to /effort, that's where you can toggle this, or in a ultrathink in prompt in the CLI fashion, you can do Ultracode, and that also toggles this dynamic workflows here. Effort control, okay, and co-work. I missed that. That's good for the co-workers. Messages API can now, the Messages API now access system entries inside the message array. Developers can update Claude's instruction mid-task without breaking the prompt cache or routing the update through a user turn. Yeah, so harness, update permissions, token budgets, environment, context, as agent runs. All right. So that's all good and well. That's what you'll see on the headlines, but let's actually read through. We got things here, more in depth with the conversation system messages, refusal stop details, effort defaults, fast mode, lower prompt cache minimum, and then I guess we don't really need to go over the limitations to Opus 4.7, but we'll do it here really quickly. Sampling parameters not as supported. Okay, so temperature down, meaning randomness. Top P, top K, yep. Adaptive thinking is the only thinking mode. All right. A lot of people updating their API keys for 4.8. Long horizon, okay, improvement areas. Thinking. It's just a better model. Like, everyone's gonna switch up for the better. So, all right, overview of new features, behavior, most generally capable model to date, as we were saying, a lower 1024 token minimum cacheable prompt length. Okay, so Opus 4.8, Claude Opus 4.8. Mid-conversation system messages. So we're just talking about this. Opus 4.8 accepts role system messages immediately after a user turn in the messages array, subject to placement rules. This lets you append updated instructions later in a long-running conversation without restating the full system prompt, which preserves prompt cache. Yeah, I mean, it's just like ownership of what it's actually doing, and this is a memory patch essentially. No beta headers required. Refusal stop details. Okay, stop details object on refusal responses is publicly documented. When Claude declines to complete a request, this object describes the category of refusal. Okay, it stopped for a reason, refused for a reason, the refusal stop reason, making it easier for your application to tell apart different classes of declined requests and to route the user to the next right step. Effort defaults. Effort parameter defaults on 4.8, high on all surfaces. Okay, high on all surfaces. Fast mode. Yep, so this is what is pretty cool. 2.5x higher output tokens per second from the same model at premium pricing. So we have Opus 4.8. So it's, I mean, look at this, man. It's a third of the cost of output tokens and input tokens. That's awesome. That's good stuff right there. All right. Lower prompt cache minimum. The minimum cacheable prompt length on 4.8 is 1024, like we said, lower than on 4.7. Prompts that were too short to cache on 4.7 now create cache entries with no code changes. So cool. I mean, yeah, general kind of highlight here, but quite interesting stuff. In terms of actual use, what I've found is that, you know, it feels snappy. I mean, I've been using it for only 7 hours, but it's snappy as hell. I mean, despite what you'll see on X, Twitter, whatever, it's not like night and day, like, or at least I haven't felt that yet, where it's, you know, some crazy update, but everyone's obviously gonna, you know, spin up their engagement, or try to spin up their engagement, hyping everything up in this kind of cycle here. So you know, you'll hear things like, this is distilled mythos, but to be determined. Yeah, and kind of the workload has been, I have given a go with the Ultracode. Seemed to do a bang up job. Now, a question I have is, hey, when do I use /goal? When do I use Ultracode? Then you got Ultraplan. I don't use Ultraplan like that, but you know, that's going to be an ongoing thing, as there's like, and you only figure out with testing it out and being in terminal. Actually, you know, you got a million things to do. I have a million things to do, and when I don't really know which way to throw something, I might have an inkling that, you know, a just iterative preloaded prompt, aka satisfy this by all means, take your time / goal, how to justify that against a tool that is doing deep research and analysis. And what I've found so far is it's just the execution. You want to go to goal, but if it's just planning, you know, I think that it's a much beefed up version of plan mode is just going to the Ultracode and say, hey, reply in chat, right? I want to, you know, and that's kind of what my harness has been in my Claude MD. I kind of end every prompt with just an abbreviation that is laid out in my memory file, in my Claude MD file, of just SUSIN, spin up subagents if needed, and RIC, reply in chat. And I kind of just tag that on to a lot of prompts I send out, effectively doing something similar, trying to, I guess, in theory, get at something kind of like this new workflows that has been rolled out. Now let's look at that. Let's see if there's any docs here on workflows specifically. Okay, 2 hours ago. All right, let's read through this one too. So, orchestrate subagents at scale with dynamic workflows. Dynamic workflows are in research preview. Amazon Bedrock, Vertex, Foundry. So, research preview in the cloud. It's cool. Okay. It's a JavaScript script that orchestrates subagents at scale. Claude writes the script for the task you described. A runtime executes in the background while your session stays responsive. Reach for a workflow when a task needs more agents than one conversation can coordinate. So it's a whole fleet, a full swarm. And basically what this is, I guess, bending the knee on is, hey, there is such thing as too many subagents in one session. Now, I think this all comes down to a memory issue. We know that even with the million context window, that performance starts to slide at, 400. 450. So if you say spin up 20 subagents, I mean, you can imagine how quickly you can get there. So yeah, examples include a codebase wide bug sweep, a 500 file migration, a research question that needs sources cross-checked against each other. A research question that needs sources cross-checked against each other. I think that has big time implications in law as well as the sciences. That's kind of what I think when I hear research question. It needs sources cross-checked against each other. And a hard plan worth drafting from several independent angles before you commit to one. So pretty straightforward. Dave, figure it out. Hey, we have 100, a tiered approach based off the complexity of this, of what is the input, which has this script generated, as we saw, a JavaScript script that's generated, and it says, okay, how many hundreds of agents can we spin up? And this fleet is just an optimized version, all kind of talking and chatting with each other, and can just delegate and split up the problem in a, I guess you could say kind of like a jury, right? And they report back independently, and in this harness it, you know, aggregates these and weights them in some way, right? Is what I imagine. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So when to use a workflow, subagent skills and workflows can all run a multi-step task. The difference is who holds the plan. Subagents, you know, a worker, Claude spawns. Who decides what runs next? Claude, every turn. Where? Claude's context window. What's repeatable? The worker definition. Scale of a subagent. A few delegated tasks per turn. Interruption restarts the turn. Huh. Interruption restarts the turn. I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that. I've interrupted before, and I thought the context stayed, but I guess it has to get back to the primary agent before all those tokens and research is done. Okay, skills. What is it? Instruction Claude follows. This is the old school /command, custom /command. Who decides what runs next? Claude following the prompt. Where it lives, again, context window. What's repeatable? Instructions, right? Scale, same as subagents. It's, you know, delegated per turn, however the task deems fit. Interruption restarts the turn. Okay, workflows. What it is? A script the runtime executes. Sorry, yes, this is how I, even if I wasn't, you know, streaming, this is how I have to hammer things in. So bear with me, but you might be similar. Workflows. Who decides what runs next? The script. That first script based off the prompt. Right? So upfront load in a way, right? In a way, it's an upfront load similar to /goal. So you gotta, you know, come in strong there. Where intermediate results live, script variables, right? This makes sense. Kind of like what we're just talking about, and that's super just wired to this orchestration layer. Speaking of orchestration, what's repeatable? Yeah, it's a framework that they've developed of a jury of subagents. I mean, really is what it comes down to, but we're branding it workflows. Workflows. See, that's like so broad, it's almost kind of annoying. But look at skills. That is a amazing branding thing they did. What happened with skills? What is a skill, right? A skill is just a markdown. They used to have custom /commands. Same thing as a skill. Except the priority that the harness actually goes and grabs it and reads it. But they said, no, we need to make this, what do you call it? Anthropomorphic. You got to bring this. No, that's an inanimate object to life there, isn't it? Or a animal to life. No. More so, it's like we need to relate this to common language stuff that's already in the ether in every workplace, you know, something like a skill, like take the Claude branding off of it, the Vibecode, the agentic engineering stink off of it, skill set in the workplace. They're anthropomorphizing the agents. What do the agents do is the question. Well, they do things, they do actions. This was custom slash commands for the longest time, but they said no, you know, framing it. The mental model that people have is, you know, these things are acting for me. They have agency. They're called agents. And what do they do? Well, they have different agents have different skill sets. A skill is one workflow before the introduction of workflows as a branded Claude vernacular. It would be, you know, hey, it's a workflow, it's a skill, it's a way to go and find data, it's instructions for Claude for you to follow. Genius, you know, branding. I think Gemini started as gems, right? That doesn't have this for Gemini, right? It doesn't have the same stickiness, right? Because Anthropic thinks about the user and they think about the mental model of how all this like starts to make sense for, you know, people lower on the curve and on the education curve and trying to figure this out. Skills. Now workflows, you know, I back into all this in this workflows conversation through skills. The fact of the matter is workflows is such a broad branding decision. Just like skills was. But as we run through it, right, it's a script. The runtime executes up front, right? It's all, you know, what decides runs that first script based off the prompt. That's why it says it's front loaded, script variables. It's repeatable. This orchestration's baked in, right? Baked into the actual model. I'm pretty sure if we're talking about orchestration, you see the market doing it, right? Like all these software factories and whatnot harness different orchestration layer, right? Also, this is a very cool feature. They had Claude in the docs to ask questions. That's pretty great. At what scale, you know, whatever, dozens to hundreds of agents per run. Okay. Decent amount of compute. Decent, but it's not. It's so delegated, this jury. I'm calling workflows jury until further notice. That from what I'm seeing, it's actually not taking up, you know, as much as scale. Hundreds or dozens of agents per run makes you think it's super big. I think it's just they've broken it up in a clean way. Interruption, yep, resumable in the same session. Right, so the only question I have, it's prompt away. So I see on the table of sub-agent skills workflows when to use a workflow. I understand for the most part what's going on, but when you say, you know, why workflows are repeatable, the orchestration itself. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? My main question is, do workflows, are they proprietary to the Claude code and just overall Anthropic Claude ecosystem? Or I saw that it's also available in Bedrock and other cloud provider situations. But could you do this in the API by itself? Could you do workflows? Just really what I'm curious is, double tap into this, the actual orchestration itself. How does this live in the model, or does this live in the surrounding harness? This orchestration of this jury of subagents. It's a long prompt. That's a long prompt for a Okay, so it lives in the harness, not the model, right? Makes sense. A workflow runtime executes the JavaScript script in an isolated environment separate. Okay, so it's not just executing the script, it's doing it in an isolated environment separate from the conversation. This is a direct result of the XAI compute that Anthropic just got. I mean, it really is. Also, this is an important thing to say. If you're using Grok, right, XAI, you're seeing them in the news, they're investing in, they have an option to buy Cursor or any sphere who owns Cursor. You think things are moving, you use the models, you are impressed. People politically involved or just are kind of in the fandom of Musk for just a trust factor, I would say. And I'd say that a lot of people are in this Grok camp. Elon's the man. He built this whole entire factory. He had the compute, and he did not dump it in to XAI Grok models. Right? He sold it to Anthropic in a huge deal. And Anthropic, gnashing at the teeth, they were pumped to get their hands on this compute. Pumped. That's why we're getting 4.8 right now. Without that deal, Opus 4.8 would not be coming out here on the 28th of May. 26, that doesn't happen. Not at these, definitely, not at these prices. Maybe it was, not at the prices, not at, I think this would have been much delayed. As we know, my last live stream, and it's been a minute, but we kind of went over the economics of what's going on with Anthropic, and that live stream's called The State of Anthropic. Just kind of going through some of that. So yeah, end of sidebar. If you're using Grok, he's not investing in your own thing. Switch up the model. Come on out of there. Look at it, and to those people, I'd say, look at local hardware. Start understanding what's available and totally private. If that trust factor is really there, it's, that private stuff, even though it's coming from China, it is, on your local on-prem, as safe as you can, operate it, right? Look into that, but yes, switch to a different, plan. There's more highly subsidized plans in Grok that are just better. Full stop. But, and then, it's always like, when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm getting so sidetracked right now. But there is a use case for Grok in agentic workflows for sure. Reading Twitter, reading X, it's phenomenal. To distill and do research, distill information, do research, it's phenomenal. And, even just searching kind of the web and doing, research, it's strong. But overall, time and place. All of this comes down to time and place, right? So there you go. There you got your answer. So it's instead of landing in Claude's context window, it's staying, the intermediate results stay in the script variables. The model writes the script initially, but then the runtime, this isolated environment, not the model, executes the logic of the orchestration, spawning and coordinating subagents. And that's why workflows can scale to dozens or hundreds of agents. The model isn't holding all the state. So they figured out a way to, there's memory unlocks. With the whole mythos and everything, how all of this is evolving is memory unlocks that the teams at Anthropic, OpenAI are finding, in my opinion. And I'm curious to know more about the workflows, and I'm curious to see the adoption and what people actually, do with it. Run deep research with a question you want to investigate. It fans out web searches across several angles, fetches, cross-checks it, checks the sources it finds, and synthesizes a cited report, deep research. What changed in Node.js permission model between 20 and 22? Claude asks whether to allow the workflow, to approve it. So there is an approval gate. Then you watch the progress, right? The view shows each phase when its agents count. Token total, elapsed time, everything you'd expect, and it gives a report. Now the report, no. We don't have to get into everything, but the report is, a report is a good word for it because it's a long response. Anyway, that's the docs, flying through, work through some questions, making kind of a foundation for the new features that are rolled out in a product that I still use. I don't know if I titled this video Codex. I was gonna get to some Codex talk, but we'll leave that for next time. Codex web app is, it's solid. But we'll leave that for later. So that about does it. Go ahead and have a good day, or subscribe if you're feeling like it. All right.